chair, you can choose
I thought so.
whatever if you wanna talk
Very
about
small.
whenever.
Pick and
I think.
choose. Pick and
Yeah.
choose.
I think I heard you right. There it is, got my pillow.
You ready, Kathy?
Anytime.
All right, I'd like to call this Buildings and Grounds meeting to order. Kathy, would you take roll, please?
Lee,
Here.
Hayes. Here. Picken.
Here.
Before the pledge, real quick, just let the record show that we have the mayor here, who's going to speak. Scott Fulton's here, who's going to speak, and Dr. Ann Walther is here and going to speak. So, stand for the pledge. Mayor?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to allow the people that you just referenced to speak at this committee meeting.
I'll second that. You need names, Kathy?
Oh,
You good?
it probably would be good just for the record.
You want to read those names and then I'll second it?
Yeah, I don't think I need to list Mr. Fulton because department heads are always allowed to talk at the meetings, but I'd like to make a motion to allow Mayor Compton and Dr. Walther to appear before the committee and speak.
Second that.
Lee,
Yes.
Hayes. Yes. Picken.
Yes.
All right, we'll get started here. We got a bunch to talk about. Gonna make a few adjustments if everybody's good with it. I'd like to start with Dr. Walther, and then we'll go to the mayor, and then they can get out of here and we'll finish up.
Go for it.
Come on up. You're on.
I am.
Hi, Dr. Ann Walther, 7899 Columbia Road, Pataskal. I'm here to represent the Pataskal Lions Club in decorating the Veterans Green gazebo and also including to make it cohesive, the Rotary tree. We've been in, Lions Club has been in touch with the Rotary president, and they are amicable to having the two items decorated as such. And then we'll have the tree lighting. I've done a brief overview for you of what we'd like to do, included a couple pictures, basically all white lights, greenery and red accents. So something very simple, very almost not quite country Christmas, but we'll go there. And then we also will have a Veterans Green wreath for December 7th. That will also be a green wreath with red berries on it. One thing I forgot to include in my overview was that we will not be screwing anything into the gazebo. We will be using wire or covered ties, or if we can, master the contact light strip kind of thing. So we just want to make sure that she stays where she is. I don't know if I need to speak all about it. For
No,
the record.
And what I was gonna do is just, if that's a brief overview, I personally don't have any questions. I think it's a great idea. I have no issues with it, but I wanna make sure that everybody here has opportunity to ask questions and give feedback.
I have no questions, and I just appreciate you doing it. It always looks so pretty driving through downtown. So thank you.
We'll keep going.
Tim?
Tim?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And, or maybe Scott, you can help me. Do we need to vote on this, or do we just?
Typically, we've done it for the record.
Okay.
Doesn't hurt.
I believe I'm the first person to bring it to this committee.
It's the
We
first,
were-
because I don't remember it
We were trying
coming.
to figure out a process to move forward.
I don't remember ever doing it before, but the mayor's got his
So
hand up. he can.
congratulations on being first.
Well, when the Pataskal Alliance gets an activity permit for the cookie walk and all the things that we're doing down there, it's all kind of been wrapped in. And Rotary's working with the Lions also on the
Right.
tree, so it's just a community event.
I'm fine with that, but I didn't know if while we're all here, if we wanted to take a vote just to have it. I'm up for suggestion. Kathy, do you have any input on that?
Usually the committee only makes recommendations when they vote to recommend something, but this is something we haven't come before the committee before, so.
Well, do we anticipate council as a whole hearing this? or is this the only time anybody's gonna hear it?
You ever taken it any farther?
Yeah.
It
Good.
usually was a phone call, but I know that there've been some movement on parks and buildings and how to appropriately approach things, so that's where I was encouraged to come to this committee and just bring.
I mean, the only thing is, you know, I have no problem whatsoever in making a motion for the committee that we support the plan given to us, from, the Rotary and the Patasko Lions Club for the Village Green.
Yeah, I mean, the way I'm thinking about it, since the first time she's come in, we might as well just CYA and just take a vote on it, and we've got it, and then,
Then I will make that.
go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we support whether, if it goes to council for a vote, which I don't know if it will or not, but we would support it there. And also that we as a committee support the plan handed to us today, by Dr. Walters for the, Veterans Green and gazebo Christmas lighting schedule.
I second
Roll?
Lee,
Yes.
Hayes,
that. Yes,
Hicken,
Yes?
Just at your committee report then on Monday
That's what I'm
night,
gonna
just
do,
bring
I'm
it
gonna just send my committee report, mention it to council. Scott, can you make sure it gets to BJ?
Mm-hmm.
And, thank you very much. We'll make sure, it's kinda new for us too, so might as well just check all the boxes.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
thank you.
All right, Mayor, do you wanna talk about, the sign pictures we have here?
Well, I
Name
would
and
just,
address, please.
What's that?
Name and address, please.
Front porch, Patasko, Ohio.
Mayor Compton, 13157 Havens Corners Road, Taskville, Ohio, 43062.
what I'd like you folks to do is, circle a couple. Now, obviously, and I mentioned this to, Councilman Hicken, I asked Tommy Brown to do this personally because I was getting some very, generalized signs that look like the old signs. So Tommy said, okay. He went down, looked at the station, that's why the lights are on there. Those lights don't have to be that big. These were just ideas that he threw out. And if you look in the top left-hand corner, that board could be an LED sign if we wanted stuff to scroll. It could be a bulletin board for just items that are coming up. Obviously, the Sterling Theater would have to be added to all of these signs if approved, so that they're, and all it would have to be is a small bar or maybe a sign, the same size as the utility and the chamber positioned on that sign. So there's only so much room to work down there. That's why it looks kind of tall and stubby. But there's only one bed down there. It does have electricity, but if you want to make some modifications, or what I assume today would be, at least you guys would circle a couple, make some notes. Obviously, again, the theater will be on there. Then he can narrow it down. I can tell him what I'd like to see on the next round, to bring back 1 or 2 samples to you folks, and a rough price, so that we can get some other bids, and make everybody happy. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Well, actually, first, Suzanne and I kinda had a sidebar down here. Timmy, do you have a preference? One thing we both agreed on, we didn't like the lights on top of those, so.
I would agree with that.
Is there any of
We can put a
the,
spotlight
yeah,
coming
at the
out
bottom?
on
Well,
the ground.
yeah, there's already electricity that could throw spotlights up on there. He was just going off of the 2 lights that are already on that
Right.
building.
Do you, Timmy, of the 4 on the bottom, do you have a preference or a couple that you'd like to see? Cause obviously we have to add the Sterling Theater. The one, Suzanne and I kinda liked the 2 on the 2 farthest to the left. Mostly the farthest one to the left.
So, as I was looking at these,
Right or left?
Left,
Left.
These 2.
Yep.
Okay.
yep, I do. The functionality of the sign on the far left, for me, is good because we anticipate the chamber being there forever, but it's possible that it might not, and it might be easy to take one of those signs off or change it. Yeah, whereas the other one has both of them on the exact sign. So should something change, we'd have to remove the entire sign. But I do like I like the scrolled top on the second one in. I think that, I like the idea of the extra sign underneath. I don't think, given the size of this sign, that a scrolling sign is gonna be,
Well, and the speed of the traffic too.
that's why. Because of its size and the speed, I just think it's probably not gonna play, so. My other question would be, would you want to have, the Sterling Theater I assume would be equal in size. I don't know if that means that the bottom, you could put static things there in case somebody walks by. I don't think, and I think if we don't run electricity to it, we're probably saving some money. Don't wanna be penny wise and pound foolish, but, so I like the two on the left, I'm okay with those. My other question is, I'm trying to picture where the actual sign would go and whether it is perpendicular or parallel to the road, or if we thought about that. You put in the sign,
It's two-sided, so you're seeing it from, just like the original sign.
so it's going perpendicular to the road.
Perpendicular.
Yep.
That's the plan, okay. I wasn't sure if that was, if we had considered other options.
Mhm.
But, those two are fine with me, I think they look interesting, and, my only question in the end is, I also don't, maybe with the next round of drawings, we can get dimensions. It's tough for me to look at this as it is, and are those signs this big? Or are they this big?
Right.
That would help, I think, just me,
Yep.
making sure that what we put in there is good and functional.
Yep.
And I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Scott, do we have to follow, I'm sure Brandon has our sign codes probably memorized, but, do we need to follow those to a T?
What I've been told is that a municipality is not responsible for following its own zoning code. That being the case, I think it would be in the city's best interest to make every accommodation to do that,
Okay.
just because then it looks, the appearance to the folks in the area can say, well, we can do whatever we want, but you have to follow this. So whatever selection the committee chooses to go forward with, I can take a look and see if there's any issues that we have, and we can make adjustments accordingly.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just think that I like the first one on the left, bottom. Maybe we just flip it around a little. I do like the symbol of the city of Pataskala being on it, but that doesn't mean that we can't have it on like the top one with the utility. I like the idea that Tim said about, obviously, utilities is gonna be there for a while, so we wanna keep that one. But I think that one on the left could be maybe the big one, the bigger of the signs. The one on the bottom is on the top with the city symbol and the utility department on that. And then maybe two small on the bottom being the Sterling and Chamber. But I understand the rectangle being a slide-in piece, because then you could slide in the bill, like whatever's at the theater next. Cause what he's done is, those gray pieces are those, frame-like pieces where you slide in like a 16 by 20 removable poster, because he had given me some of those at Pataskala Elementary when I was doing rules around the building, and they stick to the wall and they're real tight, and you have to like slide in whatever the poster would be for whatever the Sterling's doing. So that, I think that's what that is something that can be interchangeable. And if that's the case, then we just put something in there that's, I don't like the idea of not having a permanent Sterling Theater sign, but if you can put what's coming next for the Sterling Theater in that spot, that's possible that could be the Sterling Theater's block, because that fits a theater poster. That's what I think it is.
What if you just made that a little bigger and put Sterling Theater small at the top,
Mhm.
permanent?
Coming soon, and then you just
Yeah.
always had something, or you could even have a phone number there that says, call to book for, I mean, cause that would give a phone number, if people were like, oh, I wanna do a wedding, or like if we had a number.
Yeah.
So I think that the bottom could be interchangeable, that's what I think.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong, but I
Well,
think that's what that is.
The gray box was to show you that you could either do an LED board, which, those are $6,000, so I know we're not going with that. Or a bulletin type board, so it was just space for, you know, if the utility department wanted to list, you
Yeah, they
know,
can
we're flushing hydrants this week, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. But it could also be, you know, dedicated just to the theater.
That's a good idea. Why don't we do this, Mayor, so we can, since we've got a lot of options. If he can add the Pataskala logo over to the one on the left,
Okay?
and also add a Sterling Theater. We
Mhm.
don't wanna make it too busy,
But
but
I
I
think we
do
can
like,
have those on
I do like the slide inside, because the chamber, utility, and the Sterling Theater
Mhm.
could use that slide inside one.
Agreed.
So why don't you just have him work off the one on the left and add those two things, theater and the logo, and then bring it back to us with, if possible, with the price.
And if you remember, the original sign was a lot lower and a lot wider. I think he was just trying to get all these on the page. So don't think that it's gonna be this skinny mini. It's going to be a nice size sign. So
Can you work with that?
I will add scroll top, I will add the theater, I will get dimensions,
Scroll top,
and I will add Pataskala symbol.
no scroll
No
top.
scrolls.
No scroll top.
Just the first one on the bottom row.
And add theater. Add theater, dimension size, add Pataskala symbol. Okay. Anything else?
The address.
The address. Maybe he does, maybe have him work with the two on the left, so we have two options to present to council.
Because I imagine with the size of that black scroll top, he could get all three, utility, chamber, and Sterling. Cause it would be big, and plus, the font wouldn't have to be as big as we're seeing it here. If you put all three of those with the address at the top of the curve on the scroll top, then the bottom could be the interchangeable piece that all of them could use. So, two has, I like that, first two.
There was a time when I actually was thinking that, the reference to the theater should be home of the historic Sterling Theater instead of just Sterling Theater. But that's from my interaction with the people of the theater.
Why don't we ask them what they want?
Well, right there he is.
He's right
Yeah, I
here.
know.
No, once upon a time, it was connected to the museum and they liked that name, but we just like Sterling Theater, to be
Fair
honest
enough,
with you.
fair enough.
Mike Compton, Sterling Theater.
Sterling Theater.
Mayor, on the scroll top, would you have him put the city logo over too, in his design?
You want that on top?
If it can be squeezed
If
in.
it can be squeezed in.
Okay.
Although I'm just as happy with the ones that he has placed on the bottom,
Yeah.
I like that too.
Yeah, I like that too.
so.
And
I only worry about somebody kicking it in or something happening to it. But we could worry all day.
You were worried about the cannon and nobody's bothered that,
Nope.
so.
But I'm married to a lawyer.
I
I
know.
shooed several children off of it the
Mayor.
other day.
This is what's beat into my brain every day.
can you get prices too, Mayor, with these?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Kathy, go ahead.
Only as a historic reference, for the Sterling Theater, on each side of as you walk up the stairs, as you get at the top where the brick is, that's where they had, what was this week and next week.
Okay.
at
On the
Sterling
wall?
Theater. Yeah, on the outside of the building.
Right.
Right,
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
In one of those glass
right.
that you opened and changed the
And
letters.
it had, what it was the poster like you would see
Right,
for a,
Like a
for a
playbill
movie.
poster.
Mhm.
That's what was in those.
I think that's cool. And I think if
One
we,
side was this week and the other was next week.
I think it's cool, like, I think all three entities in that building can use that,
Something that's in there.
something that's in that. So I like keeping that, but let him play with it, he's good at that,
He's very good at that.
and then just come back.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah. Do we need to look at this one while we're here? The one out front? No, we're not doing that? Okay.
One at a time.
All right,
Thank you, Mayor.
we're gonna move on then if nobody else has any questions. Everybody good?
Yep.
Let's see here. Trees at City Hall and on Main Street. BJ's not here, but I believe he was wanting to remove some trees here.
The big trees that have overgrown, that are hiding the building, he would like to cut those off, show some more of the building.
Okay.
Um,
So we would need to direct him to get pricing on, I think there's 4 dead trees on Main Street, and those are out of warranty, he told me. So, and then there's how many trees here that need taken down? 4 or 5?
Probably between 6 and 8.
So what's your guys' thoughts on that? Mine is just to make a,
Get quotes.
just
Motion.
a motion to direct the administrator to get quotes.
I would agree.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Any-
No, that's the first.
I'd like, my only thought is I'd like it to be somebody local that knows what they're doing, but other than that.
Scott, can you jot that down to give to BJ?
I do have a thought.
When the motion to,
Mhm.
I
or
know-
Kathy, would one of you? Go ahead.
I know we need to get quotes, and piggybacking off of what Tim said, I believe in that also, I believe in that also, but I would like to see what quality, I'd like to see what Jeremy Nestor can do as far as the quote too, just because he did so much for the police department.
He will definitely be included. He's been asked for advice, and
He's an extremely good human, so. I'd like
So-
to-
We just, the city just took down a massive tree at the intersection of Mill and Wood, maybe?
It might be something.
Can we do that internally anyway? I mean, is that something we can do?
we
internally?
contract, the street department contracts out the big tree stuff to Tree King and some other.
Lonnie's a good guy too, he's a local guy, so.
Yep. Yep.
You know what,
Sounds
if the committee doesn't have a problem with it, I'm gonna split these motions up because we're running out of time to replace trees for the year. So, the first motion I'm gonna just throw out there, make a motion to direct the administrator to get prices on removal of, 6 to 8 trees at City Hall.
Mhm.
That'll be my first motion.
Andrew second.
I'll, did you second it?
Second, yeah.
Seconded by Suzanne, and then roll.
Discussion.
Lee,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken.
Yes?
Those trees aren't gonna be replaced though.
Right.
Right now, they're just getting taken out so we can
Well-
clean
That's
up
why
the
we're
building.
separating.
That's why I'm separating it, because I'd like to make a motion, and then, we can have discussion on it, to direct the city administrator to replace,
Remove and replace, right?
remove and replace the dead trees on Main Street. The new dead trees, I guess I would call them that.
Sounds like a great band name.
Is there a second on
The
that?
new dead
Second.
trees.
Second? Any discussion on that?
They were already tagged and Jeremy Nestor has looked at them, so, just so you know.
Would you make note of that Jeremy Nestor's already looked at it, Scott? Have him call Jeremy. Roll, Kathy?
Lee,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken.
Yes.
All right, now we're to the big one. So just to recap, Scotty, what I've got is, for BJ to pass on is the mayor's handling the signs, and then he's getting us quotes on removal of trees here, and then he's gonna just go ahead and do the trees on Main Street before because we're in a time crunch here. I don't think, maybe a couple more weeks we've got to do that. No? We got longer?
Trees are dormant, you plant them in the fall, doesn't matter whether the leaves are off or not, it's just digging the hole, which
Okay.
he's got an auger.
We did the Christmas tree at Veterans way late last year.
So he's got an auger.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay warm.
All right, last thing on the agenda, we have the distressed property code. Scott has, been so kind to go ahead and, draft this up and do a nice document. So, just, I've had a chance to read it, I know you guys have had a chance to look through it. Why don't we just start with Tim and go down through it, and let's address any concerns, and Scott, you can chime in when needed.
All right. The first question I have, and maybe you know it off the top of your head, I did not, I wasn't able to dance into 1, 2, 2, 3, 12, but what is, the last item on the very last page says whoever violates any provision of this chapter is subject to penalties in 120999. Can you tell me what those are?
That's the penalty section of our code that's kind of the umbrella. What we've been trying to do, it talks about increasing level, like if you violate it, you know, you go to court, judgment's passed, and then it increases the level of penalty for recurring violations within a certain period of time. So what we're trying to do is we do more code enforcement type ordinances, because right now, a lot of them are scattered with different notification periods, different penalties, it's all over the board, so we're trying to tie everything back to that section so it's uniform throughout the code. In terms of the exact level of penalty off the top of my head, I do not know.
Okay, that's one concern that I have, because I kind of looked at this much more, and I think you even said as much at the last meeting, but at the last council meeting, but I'm much more interested in working with somebody, moving them into compliance than some type of a fine. So, and I also wouldn't want it to get out of control where, you know, somebody is suddenly hit with triple the fines and it ends up being some ridiculous amount of money. So, maybe if that's something you can let me know, just out of curiosity.
I can look into that. The issue would arise, and from a department policy, our intent is for compliance and getting problems resolved rather than trying to be punitive. A lot of times we'll look at it that if we have an issue and we keep taking someone to court, they pay fines and court costs, that's less money they have to address the problem. So we work with anybody as long as we can. The problem is if we took this out, this whole section of the code becomes unenforceable, because there's no ultimate resolution that we can go and say, hey, your pool's green, you need to fix it, and they could say, okay, great, and then nothing could happen. So we have to have a penalty section in, or else we can't enforce it.
And I certainly don't, my goal would not be to remove that ability. I understand exactly that you need that there for the ultimate enforcement. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't tied to what I considered to be a ridiculous penalty.
It's not too ridiculous, and again, we were trying to tie everything back to this, so we have a uniform penalty section. That's also why we have the abatement plan located in there, and what Steve always says is, you know, if we have someone who has a lot of trash and debris on their property, for example, you know, it didn't get this way overnight, it's not gonna get fixed overnight, so this is kind of what we already do now. But this is now, it will be codified for this, that let's set some benchmarks and timeframes to get these items fixed, and we'll work with you, and as long as you keep working, we'll let you keep going. And a lot of times he says, if I drive by and I see that you're getting stuff out of there, you know, keep going. It's not gonna say, well, you got 10 days, fix it all right now. So
Yeah.
that would be our goal, and that's why we added the abatement plan, that, you know, for a variety of issues, someone might need time, and this way we just have an agreed upon time frame to get these items accomplished.
My next item was, sidewalks don't appear in here. I believe sidewalks appear in a different portion of the code.
That's correct.
I don't know if we would want to reference that if somebody's looking in here, but I've seen sometimes where it kind of almost fits with what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if someplace in here we want a reference to where sidewalks are in our code. I also don't know where the city is in moving forward with that, because that's an incredibly huge can of worms,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the village, so. The next question that I have, and it's a question that frankly I'm gonna have until probably for the entire life of this topic. And it is, many of the things in here I think are very easy, and I can tie them in my own mind to, a slip, trip, and fall, or something comes off the roof and hits you on the head hazard. For me, those are easy. The subjective portion, the part that is the most subjective to me is 4, and I don't know in the end, I don't know how to make it tighter. I mean, I wouldn't want to be any tighter, because and part of 4 is no problem. Rotting wood on the side of a house, nobody wants to look at a house with rotting wood on it. The question becomes, who makes a determination that, that the paint is not good enough? And I think that, I just don't know that it can even be worded as such, because I think we're attempting to come up with something here that gives us a lot of leeway, and I think that's good. I've talked to Mr. Lee. I also am wary of the code being used as a weapon in a war of neighbors. And I don't know why I go to the lowest common denominator of humanity, but maybe it's just because of what I've seen, not just in our city, but in others, where,
Mm-hmm.
somebody doesn't like their neighbor, so they say, well, halfway up on his house, the paint's coming off. And then calls us up and uses that as a weapon. That bothers me. I don't know how to fix that, and in the end, I really don't have a lot of input to see if we can. I'm happy to listen to the other members, and they may feel very differently, and that's totally cool. I expect we may feel differently about stuff from time to time. That's the only other thing I think that I saw in here that is truly arbitrary. I think being able to walk on a porch without having your foot fall through it that's okay. I don't know how we're going to enforce the leaking roof statute. If we talk about roof should be free from leaks, how in the world are we gonna know if the roof is leaking? I just don't, unless, are we gonna now walk into people's houses and ask to see their attic? So that one for me is I appreciate it being in there, but I really don't see how we're ever gonna find out if a roof's leaking.
Okay, so we'll start with the.
Sorry, that's a lot.
No, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Your face was awesome.
So if we go to the Hatfield McCoy situation, and that happens a lot more than you think, that someone calls as a problem with their neighbor, we go out, someone deduces, I know who called, they call on them, and it keeps going back and forth. We will do it with a reasonable situation, that we go out, okay, if it starts to get down to, we see what's going on, we don't have the time or resources to come figure out this spat. So what we've done in the past that's worked well is Steve will go out and say, okay, Hatfields, here's everything I could cite you for on your property. McCoy's, here's everything I could cite you for on your property. If we want to do this, we can, but let's get down to what is the issue and what do we need to resolve. That it's like, you're going to get each other in trouble and then you're going to go to court. This isn't worth it, guys. Let's come to a resolution. So we kind of play mediator once it gets to that point. And you're right, with this, it's going to be subjective. I always view it as we do not want to go and, get out a magnifying glass and say, look at this paint or things like that we don't want to be the property maintenance or distressed property police. I always view it as, we had no way to address Pataskala Square. This would give us the ability to address that, and I think any reasonable person would say, that's clearly an issue. If we look from the street and looks like you're flashing or your fascia board's fine, and then you get up close, it's like, oh, it's kind of rotten there. That's not a violation. If you have to go up and really look at it, that's not a violation. But if you come and look and you stand in the driveway and say, that's completely rotten, that's a mess, that's when we would move forward with the violation. We don't want to be nitpicky with this. These are for, I view it as more extreme examples of clearly this is a problem. And the interesting thing with the leaking roof aspect, at Pataskala Square, there's the detached building on the east side. If you go up to the windows, you can see mold everywhere. You can see the ceiling has collapsed and you can see water damage. So that would be another way to say,
It's
clearly
just
your roof
evidence.
is leaking.
Okay.
So we would not be someone saying, I think their roof is leaking. We have no, I don't think legally we can, unless invited, go into someone's house and test for leaks, because that's not something we want to do. It would be more for those extreme situations, perhaps the one, what was that we were looking at on Graham Road. You could look in the windows at that point, and if you see there's water spots all over your ceiling, there's mold, clearly that's an indicator. So it would need to be, any reasonable person would say this is an issue. So we don't want to, it's not an attempt to be punitive or get in the middle of anything and be nitpicky. It's just for truly problematic properties that we've had no tools to address, that this is what we would use it for.
The other thing I was gonna mention is, I see nothing in here as to relief from an individual if there's no appeal.
That would be through the mayor's court process,
Okay, so.
as with code enforcement.
So if you walk me through this, if you contact me and you say, Tim, your gutters are falling down, and your house is pretty bad, we're gonna put you on this list, when do you think, can you come in and talk to us about an abatement plan?
Mhm.
And I say, sure, the reason I haven't done anything yet is I don't have any money and it's gonna cost $1,000 to do the gutters. But I'm gonna pledge to do it, maybe next fall. And,
Mhm.
Again, the abatement plan section is very vague and probably intentionally very vague. It doesn't give time frames. It doesn't say, well, how much money is too much money? What if I say $11 is too much money? I don't even have $11. So I understand that it's probably vague on purpose. At what point, what happens then if the city says, I'm sorry, but we think the gutters are important, you need to get them done by May? There is no appeal to that.
That would be through the mayor's court process.
So I would come into mayor's court and I would say, Your Honor, I'm working to get this done, they say I need it done by May, I can't do it till next fall. And
Mhm.
then our magistrate is the determinate.
So how that would work, so in your situation, if you say, I'll get them done next fall, so we would address the abatement plan, and that's the reason we don't wanna be too nitpicky, is it might not be financially possible for some people to make these fixes, and you don't want to be punitive, take them into court, and now, well, I have less money to do this.
Right.
So we would look into the abatement plan and say, okay, next fall, if it's hanging off and shooting water at the neighbor's basement, for example, we'd say, well, let's get that off. Fix that problem first, so you're not shooting water in the neighbor's basement, get that down. Then we could say, okay, if you think you can do it next fall, we'll give you the abatement plan until next fall. If they didn't do it, and they say you had a year to do it, well, you didn't meet the terms of the abatement plan, we come into mayor's court. At that point, if they say, I just don't have the money, the mayor's court can look at financial records, I think it's insolvency, I think is the legal term, to say, clearly this person doesn't have it, we can extend it and waive court costs and things like that, so you can get it done. So just because you go to mayor's court doesn't mean you can't extend it further. If someone comes in and says, well, I just can't afford to do it, and they look at the tax statement and say, you make $10 million a year, that's not true, then he can say you need to fix it. So he would be the arbiter in that situation to make that determination, which is what happens with any mayor's court situation.
Okay.
That, for example, we've had some where there is an issue with, the code term is trash and debris on a property. There was an issue with someone having health problems that couldn't, it's like, I can't do this. So we've reached out to local churches and gonna put them together that they can help. So we always look for a solution. It's never to be punitive unless it's like we run out of options and the folks won't cooperate with us.
Okay. I've talked enough for a little bit anyway.
Yeah, Suzanne?
Well, what I was gonna say to what Tim said was, well, I agree with everything you're saying. The way I look at it, and maybe I'm wrong, was just that although it's subjective to going up to a property and judging it, that we have, the people that we have in place to do it, you guys have seen enough and received enough phone calls that I'm gonna, like, for me, Tim, like, I agree with everything you said. For me, it was like, I'm gonna trust that person that you have seen way more than I have. You have more experiences, and you also know which neighbors, like you said, have had issues, or you can figure it out, and you know how to pull back. I do like the idea of, number one, seeing how we can include sidewalks with some type of an abatement / deadline. Like, once we assess the side, like, I think you said something about Bexley, no, you said Miami had
Well,
really
Oxford,
bad
Ohio.
sidewalks. But Bexley, someone had said that Bexley just assessed their sidewalks and they went through with paint and put X's on things that needed repaired, C's for what the city was responsible for. But with that, I think that there needs to be, like, you have X amount of a year to repair that. Like, there needs to be some type of, not a deadline in a sense, but like the abatement allows them time to financially put money aside to repair that. So it's not showing up at their door and saying now. It's saying, once assessed by the city, you have X amount of months, 12 months to repair this. You know what I'm saying? Something so that the respect is given. These have been, the repairs have been needed for a long time, and then us coming in and now assessing them, if not working both ways, like be able to work with the homeowner. So I do like the idea of sidewalks being considered, because it's obviously an issue, especially in downtown. The old trees have uprooted the sidewalks. We have people I'm receiving letters from residents that are visible, you know, their vision is impaired and they're struggling to walk through town. Strollers, pushing a stroller or a wheelchair is almost something that can't be done down Main Street. So I would like to see that, if that's possible, to be looked at. The other thing I had was, it's escaping me, and maybe I'll remember it, but go ahead.
Yeah, so, Scott, first off, I really like this overall. I agree with a lot of what Tim's saying. I'm a little bit more hard line on it. I feel that when you own property, you purchase property, and you buy property, you also take on the responsibility to maintain that property. You just don't buy it and leave it, and I think that you owe that obviously to yourself, but to your neighbors as well. So, while I don't wanna get in the business of going out and just racking up violations, I sympathize with anybody that's in any type of financial burden, because everyone's situation is different, whether it's illness or losing a job or whatever. That's what the abatement plan's for. But at the end of the day, as a property owner, you have a responsibility to maintain that. So I feel pretty strongly that, this document does allow us to give them the leeway for any financial burden, but it also allows us to have some bite, some teeth into holding people accountable for just not doing it because they don't want to. I'm not gonna mention any specific places, but I can tell you that there's places all through downtown, old downtown. You've got a beautiful home and then not. And I think that those people that really put their time and effort and resources into keeping their home beautiful, this helps them too, and I think we owe that to them. Whether you're downtown or anywhere in the city. So, I get it's subjective, I get that, the part that, for me, I believe, there's no rule, we've taken out all rural properties. So this doesn't include farms, it's over 1.5 acres and above, right? Plat subdivisions, all that. I feel that's fair. But we have to have some type of mechanism to put some teeth into this. Again, we can't have another Pataskala Square. So yeah, I mean, Tim brings up great points. I'm just a little bit more hard line on it, because I feel very, very strongly, not only as a property owner, but as a business owner, and also a family member of, well, I'll just say my parents own rental properties, and they go above and beyond to keep those nice. Not just for the tenant, but for the neighbors. So I guess it's kind of just the way I was raised, that if you own property, it's your responsibility to maintain it. So I'm a little bit more hardline.
I remember.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it was a long day. 2-hour delays really mess with kids' brains. So what Tommy was saying got my memory back. It was that I have received in my 4 years on council so many letters asking why we as a city aren't doing anything about properties downtown that are in disrepair. And all I can say to them is we don't have anything in place. But this puts something in place. This gives you the back, the structure to be able to say, we now can move forward. And my most recent one was last month. Someone wanted to know why it was that a particular downtown building appeared to be dangerous from the back, and what were we gonna do about it? And so I feel it's embarrassing as a city representative to be able to go, I don't know. I don't have anything for you. But this makes me feel better that we can say to our residents who are concerned, number one, for safety, and just because it's an eyesore, and they're taking care of their properties and their businesses, that we have something in place and it's being worked on. So, thank you.
And a lot of these that were included, we have had calls about in the past. And it was a similar situation where we said, we can't do anything. On a couple, there was a pool that was problematic that we were able to talk to the property owner who fixed the issue, but if the property owner was not going to cooperate with us to seek a resolution, then we had nothing.
Yeah, because we can go in and say, please do this, but really with nothing in place, we don't have anything.
That's correct.
And this helps you, because I'm sure that the amount of calls that you get that are directed to you, people asking, this validates what you're trying to do in the city. That's all I have.
Timmy? I've only got one more thing, so.
I would just say, in the end, whether I'm as hardline as my fellow council people or not, either way, this popped off exactly how I would expect, how it should work, and I thank you for your efforts.
You're welcome.
So, that's.
I just want to go back to the sidewalks for a minute, because I think Suzanne raises a good point. Could there be something added in there about the sidewalks?
Yes, that can be added in. Should the committee choose, typically when we go with development committee, they'll make a recommendation that it moves through the code amendment process. We would be able, should it be recommended this evening, we would be able to get it on the agenda for, I believe it's the December 4th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. And we could administratively add the language for sidewalks, or if Buildings and Grounds would like to reconvene and then review the language we provided, we could do that as well. So there's two options at this point.
I don't know that me personally, I want to hear from everyone, I don't know that I would need to just have a meeting to look at the sidewalk part. I think I would trust you to handle that administratively, that's just me though. Tim?
I would say yes, at realizing that I was the person that opened that can of worms.
No, you didn't. I brought it
up.
up earlier before, I
okay.
mean, we've talked about it.
I was gonna, I don't
Well,
know.
we can blame it on you since you're staying in the seat.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. It's nothing better. I'd rather blame it on somebody who's leaving.
It was me,
No.
business owner, neighbor.
I think that the problem in general is, as Mrs. Hayes said, is probably more rampant and more wide-ranging across certain areas of the city. And it, depending on how much we choose to bite off, I don't know that it's, I mean, I just wanted a reference, and also within, if we can, I like the plan, the abatement plan concept. I don't know if that's present in the current sidewalk language.
I just noticed this, if we look at 122305A5, 6, says every exterior stair, ramp, landing, balcony, porch, deck, or other walking surface, which we could say is sidewalks, or we can specifically add sidewalks to number 6, and then it shall be maintained and kept in sound condition and minimally safe repair. So we could add sidewalks to that, and I think that would work.
You could probably just do it parenthetically, including sidewalks,
Mhm.
to let them know that we specifically were talking about it.
That sounds good to me, what do you guys think about that?
I like that. Just a side note from what I'm hearing from downtown residents, for whatever it's worth, that, one of the neighbors down the street, nice gentleman, he's still angry, and he said it to me, to my face, still angry that the Hayeses got free sidewalks when the George Bush stimulus package came through, and that they are going to have to repair their sidewalks. And my response to him was, my sidewalks before were actually better. The ones that we put in personally were better, but when the stimulus money came through, they didn't ask, they just decided on a path. So there is some animosity with the people that got the stimulus money in front of their house, and then it ended. And we didn't have a choice where it ended, it just ended. And so there are residents that are annoyed by the fact that some residents have what they deem to be free sidewalks versus their sidewalks. So that could come up in the future, and we just need to be aware that some people are gonna think that some of the residents and businesses didn't have to pay for their sidewalks, when in fact it was really out of our hands, if I remember correctly, with the stimulus money, because I didn't have anything to do with that, because I had a nice curb cut in front of my house, and it was taken out, and it just was put in. And I know we didn't have any say in where it started and stopped, if I remember correctly.
And I think
That's
the
right.
city did a safe routes to school
That's what I was gonna say next.
project, where they would do sidewalks, and that was prior to my tenure, so.
That was before the George Bush stimulus package, so they were very close to each other in proximity and time-wise. So yeah, because I was working at Pataskla at the time, and we were walking kids from the library and from Unique Boutique, like we did this big walking day. That's when BJ was, what did he
Safety
do?
director?
Yeah, that's
Or,
how I met
public
BJ.
service director.
That's how I met BJ, was on that big walking day where we walked the kids from Destin, like people would drop them off. So anyway, there is some animosity. I don't know what the answer is to that, whether or not you assess everyone and the whole Main Street pays, but that's a big job. But it's worth talking about.
Mhm.
I think the word we will find that if we choose to undertake a sidewalk program where we just go out and we just find everyone that we think is broken and we send them a letter. And I'm not arguing one way or the other about it right now, that I think it'll be,
Huge.
well, if you think I mean, obviously we've seen this chamber full of angry people for a variety of reasons, everything from hunting or
Yeah.
fire to,
I know.
I definitely think that's, they'll be in here and then we'll be,
But,
that animosity will be there.
but at the same time, the neighbor that was frustrated was also watching people during the street fair fall and hurt themselves because there are patches down Main Street that have disintegrated away to nothing. So there's two sides to it. You know, there are people of different ages and strollers and wheelchairs that can't use our Main Street sidewalks because we have areas, residents have not repaired anything and it's just crumbling. So if they get hurt, is that on the resident that they would legally go after? It's not us, is it? As a city.
I believe in the Ohio Revised Code requires the homeowner or property owner to maintain the sidewalks, and I believe our code references the Ohio Revised Code. As far as liability, I don't know who that would be.
We just haven't been enforcing it.
No.
And
And in a
so-
weird
and
way, I
it's-
think
and
the
it's
same,
fair.
the same section of that code even talks about shoveling.
Mhm.
It does.
So it's really weird. I mean, can you ever see a day when we have zoning inspectors out writing tickets for people not shoveling their sidewalk?
No,
Mm-mm.
Kathy has something.
Kathy?
The one thing that has come up in the past concerning the sidewalks and who's liable, who isn't, we had one engineering firm that advised us that if we haven't given that resident notice that they need to repair it, then it can fall back on us. Whether that is good advice or not, but that has come up. in
Which
the
adding
past.
that to this would allow us to notify.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Okay.
They came in and they discussed how we had to go about coming up with the list,
Okay,
how these had to be inspected, that type of thing.
gotcha.
But it's been a while back.
Okay.
One thing that has come up regularly when we've looked at trying to create a document like this in the past, has been to look at it from the standpoint, we don't know that Scott will be here forever.
Right.
And is this going to work with someone else that has been hired, and what confines there are for that person, so it doesn't get out of control.
Okay.
It's just a typical argument that comes up
Gotcha.
when it comes.
Well, we're right at 5:30 and I've got a busy night with kids, so, if there's nothing else from the committee, I'm gonna make a recommendation, to direct Scott to send Distressed Properties Chapter 1, 2, 2, 3 with the sidewalk addition to the Planning and Zoning Commission
That's correct.
for review. Is that
That's a motion.
Correct.
Great.
how you want that?
That'll work.
Okay. Got a second?
Second.
Second.
For the discussion phase, I'd like to ask, it comes back, we vote on it after they look at it?
Correct. So if we get this on December 4th, Planning and Zoning Commission agenda, they should make a recommendation that night. So it'll be at least 30 days, so it probably won't come to council for a while, just because we can't do it the first meeting in January.
February, probably.
And then we can't do it, but then we have 2 public hearings on the 21st, so probably won't be until February that it'll come to council for the public hearing and first reading. So then February, March 3rd reading, so it'll be, if everything goes according to the process, then it'll be on the books in April.
Okay, okay. Is there anything else, Scott, during the
No.
discussion? I know we got to vote, but, sorry.
Yes, sir, I'll add sidewalks to the section we discussed, and then we'll get it on the agenda for the 4th.
Okay. Kathy, roll please.
Lee,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken,
Yes.
All right, does anybody have anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Roll?
Lee,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Hicken.
Yes.
See you all later, friends. I have got to roll.
Bye, Tom.
See ya.